Yep.
Okay, it's 6:12. We'll call the meeting to order. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
Ms. McDermott.
Here.
Mr. McGinley.
Present.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Schnee is absent. Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Wilovich.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
9 of 10 present.
If I could just make a short announcement for the purposes of informing the public that prior to tonight's council meeting, an executive session was held with regards to litigation in the matter of Missouri versus Luzerne County.
Thank you. Do we have any additions to or deletions from the voting agenda?
Technically take one off the agenda if we can. I know it's a contentious issue, but typically we also discuss these things in a work session before they come to a voting session by our bylaw. I know it's a new council, but
You want to remove?
the Missouri #1.
Okay. You want to make that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion from Urban to remove agenda item number 1. Do you have a second? No second, motion fails. Do we have a motion to adopt the voting session agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, we'll start public comment on the voting session agenda. First, I have on an agenda item, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Hello, because congratulations on your first meeting, happy new year, everybody. Lisa, I just have a question on the replacement of Walter Ricketts replacement. In the charter, does it say that after a person's 2 months out that they can come back to be, so in other words, can Harry Haas apply for the position? I just have a question. Can anybody answer that?
Does the office of law, do you have anything else to say before we answer your questions?
No, that's it.
That's all, okay. Do we know the office of law, do we know if a council member who is no longer on council can come back after, or should we wait to get back to them on that?
With regards to Mr. Hawes, no, he would not be eligible because per the charter, he served his 3 consecutive terms. So he would not be eligible, but individuals who may have been on council previously and are now off, so long as they didn't serve 3 consecutive terms, would be eligible for appointment. But Mr. Hawes is not eligible per the charter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next public comment, we have a Mr. Newman from Nanticoke. Is it on an agenda item?
Yes,
Sure, go ahead.
good evening. John Newman, Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. Before I address each issue, I'd like to say congratulations to the newly elected council members. I know you'll all do a fine job. Ms. Randall, congratulations on your appointment, and Mr. Lombardo, congratulations. I knew you'd make it. And to Leanne and Chris, again, I don't want to forget you and Steve Urban. And finally, I need to shout out, and I talked to him privately, but Tim McGinley for the work that you did as chairman for the years which you served. Great organization and administration skills. And again, thank you.
Thank you.
The lawyer issue. Yeah, I believe you do need your own lawyer. Okay? If you look at government as it's established in the state and federal, the executive branch has their lawyers. The legislation branch should have their own lawyers. Okay? You should be able to vet, hire, and pay someone who is working for you, not for the community. So I support that agenda, or that agenda item. And looking back to when I've been around this county for quite a while. When the framers wrote the charter, it was a totally different county than it is today. They had to make some decisions. There were a lot of issues. Think back, financial problems, service problems, corruption problems. Those have pretty much gone away. So when they wrote the charter, they dealt with the current day's issues, but they put in an item in there where you could amend that charter for the future. Well, the future is now. Future is now. And the issues at hand, I believe you need your own lawyer. And I think most of you probably feel that way. It does have to go on the ballot. And I think with proper activity, you can get that motion, that amendment passed. As far as the lease issue, be careful. Be careful. Because do you know, are you sure what contractual issues are in those previous agreements? Be sure when you make your decision that there's not something between the lines which would cause you some embarrassment, would cause you to have your decisions overturned. Now, I'll revert back to the lawyer issue.
Mr. Newman, excuse me, your 3 minutes is up, so if you could just wrap it up quickly.
I will.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. If you have your own lawyer, you need a lawyer who is steeped in contract law, property law, and the constitutional issues, state and federal. That individual should be able to go through those previous contracts and give you hard and fast advice on what to do in this issue. I read her former council lady Hunt's piece in the paper this morning. She makes some very interesting points. Very interesting points. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else for public comment on agenda items?
Madam Chair, this
Okay.
is Mark Rabo speaking.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and Vice Chairman Lombardo on your appointments, respective appointments. And I'd like to welcome the new council members and wish you well on your serving your terms in this year. First of all, I'd like to address agenda item number 1 on the litigation and settlement. First of all, I would like to suggest that if like Councilman Urban could not, his motion was not agreed to or not seconded, I would suggest that please, the other council members have the attorney renegotiate with the litigant's attorney, because this is just woefully unacceptable. I mean, I agree with what former Councilwoman Hauk said in her piece. And I would also add that I think that there needs to be a look at what was adopted prior to when the flood happened, when it came to the buyouts. I think that needs to be explored further. with regards to what HUD gave in their allocation and what was asked for by the municipality and by the county, respectively. So those things have to be explored, and also you can't have a buyout and then have a lease on top of it. That's just outrageous. As far as agenda item number 3, I would concur as to, and I've said this when former Councilman Griffith brought it up as far as with the separate attorney. I would add to what the gentleman said about the government entities, the other branches of government. As you all know, Madam Chair and Vice Chair, members of council, this government was set up as a parliamentary style system of government, which means that this form of government is no different than that of the European parliamentary systems. So that means you have the legislative branch appointing the head of the executive branch. And last time I checked, because I went to college in England, the parliament has their own attorney, as well as the prime minister has his own attorney. So I think just to add to what the previous speaker said, I would concur, and I would strongly suggest and support the amendment to be placed on the ballot for the council to have its own attorney. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, and congratulations once again, and to the Vice Chair and all members that are newly sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regal. Any other members here or on the Zoom have public comment on agenda items only?
Ronald Knapp. Can you hear me?
Mr. Knapp, I can hear you.
Ron Knapp, resident of Nanticoke, U.S. Army veteran. Good evening to all council members and citizens of Luzerne County. Welcome to all new council members, and I would like to wish Chairwoman Ms. Radell a successful tenure while in position she has obtained. Regarding the 6th agenda position of Luzerne County council member vacant and on the replacement of former Councilman Walter Griffith. To be honest, I feel it will be very difficult to select a replacement to fill his shoes. Even though Councilman Griffith wasn't appreciated much because of his desire to get the most out of the Luzerne County taxpayers' resources, he never stopped in his pursuit. At times, he was being persecuted for calling things as he saw them, to the point of being sued. He kept on making sure the appropriation of funds was put to the best use. To fill this seat with an individual of his caliber is going to be essential because of all the important decisions that council will be facing early on in their tenure. I believe most importantly, the investment of our children in Luzerne County. It takes a village to raise a child. It is necessary for communities to supply the right resources for our children in their early years. If the technology in place is antiquated and is not meeting the standards necessary, our children will not reach their maximum potential. It is extremely important to invest in the technological infrastructure that our children and youth department require. They will be the ones who.
Agenda items only. Mr. Knapp, please stick
It
to
is
agenda items only.
These are essential things that I believe that the replacement of Walter Griffith, former councilman, will have to take into hand. Next, I would like to bring to the council's attention the replacement of 2 bridges spanning the Susquehanna River. Those are the Nanticoke, West Nanticoke Bridge, and the West Pittston Firefighters Memorial Bridge. These 2 main arteries are an essential
Mr. Knapp,
investment.
if you'd like to talk about infrastructure, you could speak at the end of the meeting on public comment on non-agenda items. Please stick to agenda items only.
In conclusion, the importance of selecting the replacement for former Councilman Walter Griffith and someone who has been a watchdog for Luzerne County taxpayers and residents is a very important decision to achieve. And all the responsibilities facing council this year, I will pick up later in the meeting. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best and success for moving Luzerne County forward. To all new councilmen, including Chair Ms. Radell and Co-Chair Lombardo. Have a good evening. Talk to you later this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Any other members of the public have comments on agenda items only?
Yes,
Okay.
Walter Griffith.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to council. I want to address item number 1 on the agenda, which is the motion to adopt resolution approving a residential lease for the settlement of litigation. In the resolution body, it clearly states under the whereas sections, and council can reference this as they go to vote on this item. It says, whereas there was also discussion that Luzerne County would potentially lease the property to plaintiffs while they secured a new residence. That never took place. That is, I think that is a false statement in the resolution by council. I was a part of that discussion, and I don't remember that ever taking place during the discussion process, that there was anything about leasing the property. That's my first concern. My second concern is we paid out over $500,000 to this litigant to settle this lawsuit. There was no discussion about a lease agreement. That's why council unanimously voted it down at the last meeting. And now we're going to allow him to pay us $1,700 a month with our money that he secured from the county to stay in a residence that he sued us for in order to get $500,000. I think this is ludicrous on its face. I think if anybody should lease the property, it should be anybody except the litigant. I don't think that's proper. People that sue us should not get the benefit of having the ability to lease the property at a market, at a substandard or sublower market value. I think that this whole thing should be voted no. That discussion never happened. I think the attorney that represented the county should be clearly sanctioned for doing this, much like we did with Mr. Moran with the issue that we had with the Supreme Court Justice. And that the council should vote this thing down totally. If we're going to lease it, let's put it up on the market and lease it to somebody else or sell it as the agreement was. The next item I want to discuss is item number 3, which is the motion to introduce ordinance on the agenda. It says it's April 28th, 2020. That is the incorrect date on the agenda. It should say May 17th, 2022 on your agenda piece. Now your ordinance is correct, but I just want to make note that the date is wrong on your agenda for council's reference. I certainly strongly support this issue. Council has demonstrated just recently with our Office of Law ability to not represent us with the special legal matter for the district attorney that we paid over $35,000 for an attorney to represent council. Had we had our own attorney, that cost would have been absorbed by his salary, and that would have saved the taxpayers money in the long run. So I strongly support that. Congratulations to Ms. Radel for her ability to chair this meeting, as well as Mr. Lombardo for vice chair. Congratulations to those folks who were just recently sworn into council. I wish you well. I'm certainly here to help in any way I possibly can. And thanks again for my opportunity to speak to council. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Any other members of the public have any comments on agenda items only?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
Carl Venus from Hanover Township. I just wanted to first and foremost congratulate yourself on the chair appointment, as well as Councilman Lombardo on his vice chair appointment. I would also like to congratulate all newly elected members of council, as well as all former members of council. I'm very excited to see what the new council could do. Specifically, I just wanted to offer a comment on the agenda item regarding council obtaining its own attorney. I don't want to just echo what everyone else said, but I do strongly agree with council having their own representation separate and apart from the executive branch. Similarly, as indicated previous, it's the same as the federal government, the state government. The legislative branch should have their own counsel. I am an attorney, so as a practicing attorney, I just feel that it would be in the best interest of council to have its own representation. And with that, I just want to offer my congratulations once again. Very excited to see what everyone could do, and best of luck going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Venus. Does any other members of the public have comments on agenda items? Okay, if not, I have an email that was sent by former council member Linda Howe, asking to be read into the public comment record. So just bear with me, it's a little lengthy, I'll try to get through it as fast as I can. My comment is regarding agenda item number 1, the proposed lease of property to the Hazuris. Many of you, as brand new council members, may not be aware that the proposed lease of this property was on the council voting agenda in December and failed to be approved for several reasons. I encourage you to consider the following items and to vote against this proposal as it currently stands. 1, the county council was apprised in 2021 of a tentative settlement agreement, and we approved an agreement to purchase the property, but we were never informed of any discussion of a lease of the property back to them for any period of time. Number 2, Luzerne County has made a concerted effort over the past 10 years to get out of property ownership. When the county owns the property, not only is the county deprived of property tax income, but so is the municipality and the school district in which the property is located. You will have noticed that we have repository sales and accept bids on parcels that are of interest to county residents, all with the idea that the county should not be the landlord or own property that could otherwise generate income for 3 government entities. The proposal to purchase this property and then act as landlord is directly opposed to the goals of county government for the past many years. Number 3, council's understanding prior to approving the purchase was that the county would purchase the property and then sell it in order to get the property onto the tax rolls. The proposal of a lease arose at the last minute as the settlement agreement was ready to be approved. It was part of the settlement talks, as it says in the new resolution, and council was not informed of it prior to our initial approval of the settlement. Then the attorney who negotiated the agreement on behalf of the county and neglected to fully inform council of all of its terms should be held liable for the lost tax revenue and all liabilities associated with the county owning the property for any length of time beyond 2 months from the time of purchase. Number 4, while the current proposal for the term of between 12 and 16 months is an improvement over the original proposal for a 2-year lease, it is still an exceptionally long time to continue ownership and liability for the property. Any real estate transfer, the family would certainly need some time to vacate the premises, but in no one's reality should it take a year or more to do so. Number 5, someone better ask the question about who is responsible for snow removal and grass cutting if the county is the landlord. Although the proposed agreement refers to upkeep and maintenance repairs, snow removal and landscaping work is the responsibility of a landlord unless specifically addressed in a rental agreement. There should be a specific listing of exactly what responsibilities are the tenants and what are the counties, or else our already overworked building and grounds department will have new responsibilities. Number 6, the new proposed monthly rent payment on this property is higher than their original proposal of $200 a month, but it's still ridiculously low. The property in question is valued at somewhere near $500,000. Using the 1% rule, where you lease a property for a monthly payment of 1% of its value, a common concept in real estate rentals. The monthly payment for a property like this should be around $5,000. The proposed rental will not even come close to covering the lost property tax revenue, as well as covering the insurance liabilities for a year or more. Flood insurance alone is probably in 5 figures. It is enough that the county is taking the property off their hands. We should not be forced to take a further loss on the property while taking their time leaving it. In short, the county must purchase this property, so be it, but under no circumstance should the county be a landlord for a year or more. My suggestion, if you're being told to approve this lease agreement, is to amend it to last no more than 2 months at a monthly rent of $5,000 in order to give the current owners time to vacate. In the meantime, as soon as you purchase the property, put it on the market with a fixed closing date. Thank you for your attention, Linda Howe. Okay, anybody else, members of the public, agenda items only? Okay, if not, moving on, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 14th, 2021 voting session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. Abstentions? Okay, anybody for old business? Agenda item number 1, motion to adopt resolution approving a residential lease related to the settlement of litigation in the matter of Missouri versus Luzerne County.
So moved. Second.
Just have I guess a legal question. I know Mr. Thornton and Mr. Lescavage were on West Pittston Council. At the time, would they be conflicted out from voting on this matter since this is a legal issue from maybe the time period that they may have served? For full disclosure, should say.
We will never tell a council member to abstain. They have to, no matter what the situation, they must decide for themselves if they have a conflict that requires them to abstain. I don't know what Mr. Thornton or Mr. Lescavige's knowledge is of the situation, or to my knowledge, I don't think they were defendants to the lawsuit. Certainly, if they were defendants, I would say they should consider abstaining, but I think the gentlemen need to decide for themselves based on their own knowledge and involvement in the matter, if they have any conflicts.
Mr. Shorten, are you still okay making the motion?
Not really,
Okay. So you withdraw your motion?
yes.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Lombardo. Do I have a second? Okay, the motion dies. Agenda item number 2, motion to approve resolution providing prior approval for the execution of utility supply contract.
Good evening, council. I am going to call upon Ed O'Neill to discuss this matter.
Motion and second before. you-
Mr. Milda, or Ms. Kokomo, can we wait till we have a motion and a second and then he could speak on it?
Oh, sure. I apologize.
No problem. So do we have a motion?
Motion,
Thornton,
second,
second, Terry. Okay, go ahead, Mr. O'Neill.
Good evening, members of council. The resolution that I have asked to be put before you this evening is a similar resolution that we passed 3 years ago prior to entering into the contracts for electricity supply through a third-party supplier. The reason for this resolution is that there is a 24-hour period of time or less in which the broker that is on board with the county has to obtain pricing and then subsequently get a signature to lock in those prices. And that is due to the volatility of the electricity supply market. Once a price is quoted, they allow a 24-hour period in which you have to sign and execute an agreement. So there is a need to allow our acting county manager to execute those contracts once the broker brings back the pricing that he will be shopping for in the days ahead.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Any other questions? We have a roll call vote?
Mr. Lescavige,
yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Terry,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
I'm going to abstain, and I'm going to reiterate that the acting county manager is never really recalled as the chief solicitor. It's just in an acting county manager role. She's still technically the chief solicitor based on the resolution in 2016.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
9 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay, number 3, we have a motion to introduce. Motion to introduce ordinance placing a question on the, we'll correct that to the May 17th, 2022 primary ballot to amend Article 5, Section 604A of the Luzerne County Home Rule Charter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Question.
Mr. Gimlin?
This is something that's come up in the past. And if you look at information from the past history of the charter, this is something that the charter drafters talked about at length and decided that that was not the way to go. They decided they needed an office of law, and that office of law would serve all the departments and branches of government. And there would not be separate individual solicitors as had been the case in the past. The reason they did that, part of the reason they did that is because what happened is you had a whole bunch of litigation that went on between different departments, branches, parts of the government, and this caused all kinds of consternation, delays, etc., and expense. So now we go ahead and do something of this nature and follow through. you're going to create that situation where you could have different departments, again, requesting legal assistance. We have shown in the past that the council can and does and will seek other legal opinions if they wish. It's separate. We just did that with the election board question. And we were able to use some funds through the reserve fund to provide that service. And Mr. Griffith is correct that as far as the amount was $33,000. But if you select a solicitor, what's the salary going to be for that person? What's the benefits going to be for that person? It's not just the salary that's involved, it's involved with all the parts of the compensation. And I'm sure it'd be much more than $33,000. So I think that's something that everyone should consider strongly, because it really goes against the thoughts behind the charter and how the charter is written. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Madam Chair?
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Yes, just my 2 cents into this. I was never a proponent of this 2 years ago. I'm still not a proponent. I don't think it helps the county at all. Matter of fact, I think it's going to hurt the county. It's definitely going to hurt the pocketbook. So I will not support this.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I also feel that, as was the will of the people with the home rule charter, I think this should also be up to the will of the people. I think the people should truly decide this matter for themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Hart?
And I believe we're not voting on whether or not to hire a separate solicitor here tonight. We're voting on whether or not to put the question before the people on the ballot, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
And this motion is just to introduce the ordinance, so this is just to introduce it.
right.
Mr. Urban?
As the sponsor of this ordinance, I mean, quite honestly, I think we need to put it back to the will of the people and let them decide. The charter was supposed to be a living, breathing document. And, you know, I know in the past, prior councils have shot initiatives down to you know, whatever interest that they had in the ideas of maybe thwarting the will of the people. But I think it needs to go to the will of the people, let them decide. I think we're at a different place in time now in the future. I think, you know, having our own solicitor would be beneficial. I mean, even to help us clean up resolution ordinances. You do see that, like, the retirement board has their own solicitor, the ACE Commission has their own solicitor, Human Services, they tend to have their own solicitor. So quite honestly, the premise of the office of law doing everything for everybody is not true. Whenever they get in a pickle, they tend to hire whoever they want, whenever they want. Just in like the litigation tonight, you have Jack Dean litigating that issue on behalf of the county. It's not the office of law that's representing us. So, you know, that premise doesn't really hold any water or weight with me. That's why we're putting this forward, or at least I'd like to, you know, sponsor this. Let's throw it out to the public, let them decide on what we need to do as a county. This isn't, you know, an initiative that we should decide as a majority. Just give it to the people, let them decide, and they will make the best choice for Luzerne County.
And Mr. Urban, I have a question. Is
Sure.
this just gives us the ability to do that? It's not
Yes.
saying that we are
Correct.
doing that. It's giving us the ability to do so. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, you would need to pass it by majority vote to put it on the ballot. And the timeline is this tight.
Just as an addition, I support this as well. And it doesn't say anything about us not being able to hire outside counsel if we have a question that maybe we don't know the answer to, or our solicitor doesn't know the answer to. I mean, every other governing body, from, you know, school boards, city councils and whatnot, they all have their own solicitor. I think that it's time for us to have one as well. I understand what the framers of the charter were trying to do, but there's a lot of things in the charter that we need to review at this point. It's been 10 years, and I think this is one of them that's really come to fruition as an issue over the last, you know, at least the last 6 months.
And one other thing, Madam Chair, does the motion need to be read out loud here because the date was changed, or is it just assumed that the date is correct now?
I read it out loud with the May 17th, 2022 date.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you should amend it though, to make sure it's on the record, please.
Okay. We have a motion to amend this to the
I'll
May
motion.
17th, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call.
We're amending the agenda.
Amending the date on the agenda. Because the ordinance is correct.
The first was Mr. Barton.
Yes.
And
No,
second,
the first was Mr. Wilovich and the
I
second was
second
Mr.
it.
Roll call.
Yes, please.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
No.
Mr. Perry,
No.
Ms. Radel, excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
amended.
Okay, that was on amending it. Now we'll vote on the actual motion. So it reads motion to introduce ordinance placing a question on the May 17th, 2022 primary ballot. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
No.
Mr. Perry,
No.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
introduced, 72.
Introduce 72. Okay, number 4, motion to adopt resolution declaring a vacancy on the Luzerne County Blighted Property Review Committee.
So moved. I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
unanimous.
Motion to adopt resolution declaring a vacancy on the Luzerne County Blighted Property Review Committee, Redevelopment Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
unanimous.
Motion to adopt a resolution declaring the elected position of Luzerne County Council member vacant due to election to Luzerne County Controller.
So moved. I'll second.
Who was it first? I'm sorry. Mr. Urban. Second, Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Radel,
Yes.
this is unanimous.
And if nobody has any objections, we have a process in place to fill vacant council seats. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll just go ahead with advertising, resumes, interviews. Is that okay? Right. Number 7, motion to adopt resolution declaring a vacancy on the Luzerne County Retirement Board.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
unanimous.
Number 8, nominations and appointments to boards and commissions. We have the Luzerne County Retirement Board. Do I have a motion to open nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, nominations are open.
Madam Chair, I nominate Mr. Brian Thornton.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay,
Thank you.
motion to appoint Mr. Brian Thornton. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, motion to appoint Mr. Brian Thornton as a resolution to the Luzerne County Retirement Board.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
unanimous.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I don't believe you can fill a vacancy the same night it's declared. Isn't that what you're doing? I believe it has to be
Yes.
voted on for the vacancy one meeting, and then the following meeting you can fill the vacancy, but I don't believe you can do both at the same time according to our charter.
We do that for the ABCs, but this is a council appointment, so I believe it's different. Anybody from the Office of Law have an opinion on that?
That is definitely what we do for the ABCs. I do believe it's different with the council member appointments because you're just doing yourself appointments and there's not the advertising process involved.
Thank you.
Our charter differentiates between a council position and an ABC commission or position. I don't read that in our charter. Can you possibly point that out to me, Ms. Lepansky?
I'm going off of my recollection of past practice. We have with council filled a vacancy. Technically, we wouldn't have to declare it a vacancy for a council position, a council member position, where there's appointments to the board.
Okay, I think it needs to be looked into, because I think this is an error.
Number
Thank
9,
you.
nominations and appointments to boards and commissions. B, we have the Luzerne County Planning Commission. Do we have a motion to open nominations?
Second.
Motion
All
to
in
nom-
favor?
I'm sorry, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? None heard. Nominations are open.
Motion to nominate Brian Catterley.
Second.
Do I have a motion to close nominations?
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion to appoint Brian Catterley via resolution to the Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Mr. LaScavitch.
I think you need a motion to appoint and a second on that.
Oh.
Because you just did the nomination, I got by resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You need a roll call though, of resolutions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Mrs. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Yeah, but okay, we're okay. Luzerne County Zoning Board, do I have a motion to open nominations?
Second.
Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, nominations are open.
Motion to nominate Leon Schuster.
Second.
Mrs. Second, I'm sorry.
Second.
Motion to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nominations are closed. Motion to appoint Mr. Schuster on the zoning board via resolution. Roll call.
Second. He's first, I second.
Roll call vote now.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Public comment on non-agenda items. I have first Mr. Zomerfield. And if you could please just state where you're from.
Yeah, I'm from Larksville,
Thank you.
and I'm just here tonight. Who's the district attorney?
Mr. Samson Bogosian.
Okay, and assistant district attorney. Assistant.
Do you want to just state what you, and we can answer any of your questions at the end?
I'm just asking who the ADA is.
Anthony Ross.
Across the hallway.
Anthony Ross.
It has the attorney, district attorney and his deputies.
Okay,
Attorney
and the only
Ross.
reason why I'm
Attorney
asking,
Ross.
is that, I mean, when you call this place and you filed papers for an investigation, and then they get the detectives and everybody involved, okay, and then they come back to you with, oh, you know, we don't have the best answer for you, or the answer you want, okay? But here's the thing, law is law, am I correct? I mean, somebody violates the law, just like themselves, you know, but I was always told the power that feeds is the power that please, okay? In Luzerne County, we have the most corrupt. And I'll say this, I mean, these poor kids in this county, I feel so bad for them. You know, it starts from the school district, right up I mean, we got school teachers here, they know what's going on. The lawyers, you know, right to the judges, right down to the realtors, who runs the whole world. Those people, they got everything. But my concern is, and to, you know, if you read this chart here, you know, the abuse of powers. Okay, so when I email, everybody sends me, well, you gotta go to this one, you gotta fill out to this one. Nobody does nothing. Oh, go see this one. And recently, my thing is, several years ago at some run-ins, and I don't really want to say what it is, but Kingston Township Police know what it is, but they know the family. They never, the chief and Michael Hunsinger, they never backed out or turned it over to the state police or to the ADA before they even investigated. So there was a conflict of interest there. But my rights are being violated every time, you know, by this government. You know, the 5th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, you go to that, due process. My due process rights are being violated. And if I could find the right attorney, and not a phony one, that knows everybody, and what I know today, they're calling people. The first thing they want to do is call people, all right? Hey, their cell phone can be tracked just as well as mine. You know, yours, same thing here, anybody, you know, but that's today. How can we pay this guy off, or how can we do this, how can we do that? It's all backdoor deals. And people are tired of it, but they don't want to come here because they know nothing gets done. Well, I'm the ABA, who's gonna touch me? Well, you know what I learned in the Bible? Nobody knows when they die, okay? So remember that, we have this retirement plan, for what? In the end, you guys are fighting over all this stuff, but there's no justice on the land. You need justice on the land first.
Thank you, Mr. Summerfield.
I mean, who's gonna do something? I'm here. I mean, it says you guys fight for the abuse of powers. You know, I want another minute to ask, who's gonna help me here? Because every time I come here, I get turned, oh, you gotta file this complaint, that complaint, this complaint. So it's a big circle. So what do you guys do? You hire another person. So it's a big circle, just goes around. You get an attorney, then you gotta hire another attorney in this one. The law is the law. If I file paperwork for the law, they have to go and they have to do my due process rights and my constitutional rights.
Thank you, Mr. Summerfield.
It's sickening, they're corrupt.
Mr. Griffin?
Hello, members of council, Greg Griffin from Swarsville, fellow citizens. I'm the chairman of the Wilkes-Barre Area Citizens Blight Committee, and there's many forms of blight. One form of blight is affordable housing for working families, and we're being told by a lot of our members and also people we meet on the street, working families that cannot find affordable housing, and it's going to get much worse. We're talking about the Nacero plant, which could come, it may come, 5,000 workers in 5 years, very high wages. There's going to put more stress on our housing market. And so our blight committee has been working with Andy Riley, the Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority. I was in communications with him today. Terry Ostrowski from Earth Conservancy. And the plan is to find a tract of land so that we can give our citizens some hope of affordable mortgages. And it's starting to come together. Andy Riley has spoken with Terry Ostrowski, and we're looking to use some of the ARP money, the American Rescue Plan, which council is going to be voting on. And so it can be used for affordable housing. And so a portion of that, we're looking at helping to start a housing development. Terry Ostrowski from Earth Conservancy mentioned Avondale Hill up in Plymouth Township. There's acreage available, utilities are available. If council down the road can decide on helping the redevelopment authority and Earth Conservancy develop a tract of land, much like Avondale Hill. And it'll be a start. It'll be leadership from council, and it'll be a signal to the citizens that although we can't solve all the problems for the lack of housing, you're going to try. And so the Redevelopment Authority has successfully created other housing developments with mortgages that were affordable. And so they can do this. Andy says it's definitely possible. He's meeting with other financial institutions. This is going to be ongoing. So we just wanted to give you a little demonstration. And this is just an example of what could develop on thousands of acres of Earth Conservancy land. Avondale Hill could be the first project. Council could take the lead and apportion the ARP money and work with the financial institutions and Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority. So Andy Riley will be speaking before council on a proposition much like this. So we're just asking council to keep an open mind with the ARP funds and think about affordable mortgages and housing development for working families.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you.
May I say something to that?
No, I'm sorry. All members are allowed 3 minutes.
Ronald Knapp.
Oh, and Mr. Knapp.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me a chance to address council about the important decisions council will be facing, and the replacement of Walter Griffith is going to require the right person. Again, thank you for your patience. I did want to mention on the onset that year and a half back, I was 100% for a solicitor, a private attorney, an independent attorney for council, and I'm 100% behind that. I want to have that duly noted. It's imperative that is something that the Luzerne County taxpayers can vote on in the election process. Now, as to the important decisions council will be facing, I believe most importantly, I want to reiterate this: the investment of our children in Luzerne County. It takes a village to raise a child. It's necessary for a community to supply the right resources for our children in the early years. If the technology in place is antiquated and is not meeting the standards necessary, our children will not reach their maximum potential. It is extremely important to invest in the technological infrastructure that our children and youth department require. They will be the ones who will continue in Luzerne County's bright future, but only if we provide the latest tools for the very important asset we have in our youth and our county's future. Next, I would like to bring to council's attention the replacement of 2 bridges spanning the Susquehanna River. Those are the Nanticoke, West Nanticoke Bridge and the West Pittston Firefighters Memorial Bridge. These 2 main arteries are an essential investment in Luzerne County's future. Also, it would be appropriate that a decision be made to accommodate the Houston, Texas-based Narcero Corporation, its ambitions to invest $6 billion in Newport Township. This will also help to increase revenue for all our neighboring communities. 4 other items I would like to bring to council's attention are, of course, the possible appointment of the new manager, collective bargaining, and 5 union contracts that must be reviewed and approved this year. The BBB law signed by President Biden. It is impertinent that council make sure the billions of dollars being allocated for Pennsylvania and Luzerne County share for this bill to be used in infrastructure upgrades and the quality of materials and work that is involved in those projects. Lastly, I would like to talk about the federal funding the county has been allocated. The federal funding is the American Rescue Plan and $113 million. Even though officials have not been given rules on expenditures, I believe the council could start forecasting allocations for stormwater improvements and our levee improvements. Council should start coming to agreement as to what needs to be addressed first.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
And again, I want to emphasize, it is necessary for a private independent solicitor for Luzerne County Council. And that's something I was vehement about when I first started taking part in council meetings. Thanks for your time this evening, everyone.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Madam Chair, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to thank council as far as with the blighted property committee being put on the agenda, and also for the upcoming agenda for a council member. I would add, Madam Chair, to that what you said during the voting session, that the redevelopment authority has appointed one of its own board members. That's yours truly, to be the redevelopment authority representative to the blighted property review committee. So if the clerk to council can have that ordinance, and the office of law can have that ordinance drafted for the next meeting, along with the council member representative, that would be great. And I'm glad that council has taken a proactive approach to having its county blighted property committee that is under the law, instead of having a fly-by-night organization that is not conducive. And also, as far as with Mr. Riley, I hope that he would convey with us and to the board of the redevelopment authority anything that any private organizations that would happen to want a development done for any kind of housing projects, just as the law would entail to have it done. I would ask for also council to keep in their thoughts and prayers people that have to live in dilapidated structures and that have to endure over the cold days and weeks up, this winter season, just as those poor people and those children who died in New York City and over the Christmas holiday in Philadelphia. This is what can happen, and this is what gives me nightmares when blighted properties are not dealt with to the point where they are going to end up where people are basically shacking up and over top of each other, and they have nowhere to keep themselves warm or even to social distance when it comes to keeping, slowing the spread of the COVID, for the pandemic, for the Omicron variant and other variants. So I think that this needs to be a top priority for the county. This is a clear and present danger. We need to take care of our people before worrying about how many people that are coming from New York and New Jersey and other parts of the country into our state. We need to take care of the residents in our own county. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rabo. Any other members of the public? Mr. Fitzgerald, go ahead.
Yeah, just basically, I think the big major concern that I think that we're going forward is now that we got you guys elected to be in here, I think the most important thing is to get Walter's replacement, hire someone, as a fiscal responsible person like he was for his replacement. And then after that, I think, again, I reiterated this, I'm gonna keep my hire a county manager, try to hire someone that's fiscally conservative. The citizens of the Luzerne County have spoken, that they hire all Republicans. So hire a like-minded person because they can trim the fat. And also, I know that a lot of the staff here have spoken to me that it's a beat down every day. You have to handle the public, that's hard. But if we could get some of the top layers off, we can actually get increases to pay to people that work at the prisons, the sheriff's department, the people that really run this county day to day. They deserve better morale. I mean, the morale around here sucks. We don't trust the top, and we have to get rid of the top. We got to trim the fat, and it's going to be all on you guys. It's either we're going to have a dynamic change that's positive, that people cannot count the days till they get their pension. They can count the days for retirement, where they can actually afford today's living increases with inflation. It's gonna be all up to you. If you guys let the same old is gonna happen. You guys can make a big difference in this county. Hire someone that not from here, so there's no nepotism, no favoritism, no grass, a lot of fraud in this county. So let's stop that. So I'm really counting on you guys to do the right things. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Ms. Radel, it's Walter.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting. The first thing I want to publicly state to county manager and to the staff of the county is I just want to thank the IT staff and the HR department for their help in getting the controller's office up and running. It's been a pretty hectic 2 weeks trying to get things done, getting on the internet and doing the things that we need to do in our office and setting up new computers. So I want to publicly thank the IT department. I know they're running around pretty much with their hair on fire with that MFA program, which has to get the multi-factor authorization in place. And they're very, very busy. So I appreciate the extra effort that they made to spend some time holding the controller's hand, for lack of a better term, to get logged in and set up, and the HR department as well. In addition, I just want to comment on the position budget and the merit raises. Council saw the email that I've sent to council regarding who received the merit raise in my office based on the approval by county council in the budget that they approved a $3,600, 36 and change merit increase to the controller's office. So I think it's appropriate for every department and every division, or specifically divisions, to send council a similar email to let them know where that merit raise was applied, in the interest of transparency to council, as well as the interest of transparency to the people of this county. Council approved a merit increase for almost every division, every department in the county at our budget meetings. And I think it's very, very important that council be made aware of where that money has been applied or not applied to which position that council has approved. So if that position budget has changed due to that merit raise starting in January, council should get an email from either the manager or the department or the budget and finance office with an updated position list. So the council knows exactly where their money is going that they appropriated to the manager. I think that's very important in the interest of transparency. And to steal Mr. McGinley's phrase, we don't want to trounce on transparency. And I think this is very, very important that the people of this county know exactly where that, specifically where that money's gone to and to which position. And it needs to be done before October, when the next budget cycle comes along. For instance, the district attorney got a $27,000 merit raise increase for his whole department of non-represented employees. Therefore, council should be made aware of how he divided that $27,000 among which positions, so the council knows exactly where their money was spent. So I appreciate council taking a look at that, making sure that that's followed up on. And I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for all that you do for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Any other members of the public? Mr. Newman?
John Newman again. I've been attending these meetings since before the charter change. I can go back to 2001 and 2002 and 2003 and see 3 commissioners sitting up there, 2 of them elected, 1 of them appointed. And the issues were always taxes. Our taxes are too high. Our taxes are always going up. There were financial problems, and they were always cured with either a loan, which put us further in the hole, or raise the taxes even higher than they were, if they were high. And believe me, folks, I've lived in 4 other parts of this country, and taxes are not as high here as they are in some of the other places that I've lived. Okay, and I would consider this an affordable area for most people. I guess the point I'm trying to make is we have come a long, long way in this county under this form of government than we have in the years preceding 2012. 2012, this council took a very active role in cleaning up the financial mess. And Tim can quote numbers, I can't. Tim can quote numbers. And maybe when I get finished, you can quote some numbers for everybody that's speaking negatively. You know, let's speak positively what has happened. Sure, there have been bumps in the road. There have been bumps in the road along the way, but you've overcome them. But if we're going to start negatively, maybe I should say to the 5 new members, instead of congratulations, my condolences to you, because you got 4 long years to go. Let's be positive. Let's follow what's been done over the past 10 years, 9 years, whatever it is. Okay? You got to think positive. You got to address the issue as it comes up. And you have to make sure you're doing the right thing at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Any other members of the public?
I just be able to speak until the,
No, I'm sorry. You had your 3 minutes on your non-agenda items.
well, these are for agenda like that and the bridges.
Right, so that was earlier and you had your 3 minutes on this
I just
portion of
wanted
the
to say,
agenda.
like, the bridges, like, they're fixing all these bridges, or putting money, that bridge has been closed for how many years? And they just detoured around.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
And
You
they,
had
they
your
should
3
just put the
minutes.
money in the roads.
Do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion.
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, hearing none. It is currently 7:19. Can we be back here at like 7:25 for our work session? Thank you.
Recording stopped.
You've done good.
Sam, how you doing? Well, I'm in the middle of a council meeting, so I can't really speak to it too much. I'll give you a call a little bit later if I may. Oh, okay. No problem. Whatever, what's good with you? That's fine. Yeah, that'd be super. Thanks, Sam. Young man wrestles from with the cardiologist.
Do we know when this starts?
Good, yeah.
If you want to.
He went to that.
Oh, okay. Okay, it is 7:26. We'll call the meeting. to
Recording
order.
in
We already did the
progress.
We already did the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Can I have a roll call, Ms. Moore?
Mr. LaScavitch.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
Ms. McDermott.
Here.
Mr. McGinley.
Present.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
All present.
Any additions to or deletions from the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? None heard. Agenda item number 1, receive and discuss division reports for December 2021.
Good evening, council members. I submitted the division report as usual. If there are any specific questions, you can ask me now or just ask via email. Right now, what I would like to highlight are 3 different matters. The first one deals with the final rule that was just recently announced by the Treasury Department. The coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, a part of which is the American Rescue Plan. The final rule provides the following changes and new flexibility. The first one is that it allows counties to use up to $10 million in ARPA recovery funds for the provision of government services without having to go through a complicated revenue loss calculation. That's an increase from the $6 million. The second is that it allows recovery funds to be used for the modernization of cybersecurity for existing and new broadband infrastructure, including the modernization of hardware and software. It expands the eligible uses for water and sewer projects to include culvert repair, dam and reservoir rehabilitation, and stormwater infrastructure, among others. It also clarifies how counties can use recovery funds for certain capital expenditures to respond to public health and economic impacts. And then finally, it streamlines the options to provide premium pay for broadening the share of eligible workers. The new rules that were articulated it's voluminous. Our team has been on various webinars with NACO and with the Treasury. We will have a full report at the next meeting, but right now the program is set up to ensure that the government has resources needed to fight the pandemic and support families and businesses struggling with its public health and economic impacts, to maintain vital public services, even amid declines in revenue, and to build a strong, resilient, and equitable recovery by making investments that support long-term growth and opportunity. Households and communities that are presumed to be impacted and disproportionately impacted is part of the expansion of the rules. It allows recipients to provide responses to a broad set of households and entities without requiring additional analysis. Further, the final rule provides a broader set of uses available for these communities as part of COVID-19 public health and economic response, including making affordable housing, childcare, early learning, and services to address learning loss during the pandemic eligible in all impacted communities, and making certain community development and neighborhood revitalization activities eligible for disproportionately impacted communities. These are all issues that were brought up tonight and have been repeatedly brought up by the administration and council and the public as it refers to the ARP funding. The administration is focusing, and we hope to have by the next meeting, a specific plan that focuses on the small businesses in our county. We are a county that is supported by small businesses. The way small businesses go in Luzerne County is the way Luzerne County goes. They are struggling due to staffing, inflation, additional precautions because of COVID, and the administration would like to roll out the small business program first to council so that the monies can actually get in the hands of the business owners. We plan on using a similar system that we use for the CARES funding through Penn Northeast and the two chambers, Wilkes-Barre and Hazleton. So if you have any questions about that, our team is here today. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. But if you want more thorough answers, you can email the questions and we'll respond via email. The second issue is I want to highlight and thank the Pennsylvania Department of Health, but especially our EMA, Lucy Morgan, our Sheriff's Department, and Wayne Mitchell and his staff for providing the service to residents of testing. And during the time period of December 13th to January 8th, we tested 3,106 individuals. And that effort exemplifies how when the different departments within the county work together and we can work with the state, we actually can do something very constructive for our community members. So to all of the county employees who participated in making sure that our county residents were safer, I want to thank them. The final thing that I want to say tonight is my friend Ed O'Neill is leaving us, and this is a bittersweet for me. Since July, I've been the acting county manager, and I can tell you that I've relied on Ed's guidance and his knowledge and his experience. I always want my friends to advance and do better. So I'm happy for him, but as the acting county manager, he will be sorely missed. Ed's the type of guy who, if I would break down in Idaho and I called him to pick me up, he would do it. So Ed, I publicly want to thank you for all the work that you did. You put your heart and soul to make Luzerne County a better place. Ed was steadfast in his commitment to make sure that our buildings and grounds are the beautiful, picturesque showcase that they are. So Ed, I wish you well, and you will be sorely missed.
Thank you, Ms. Crocomo. I'm deeply taken back by your kind words. And I want to thank you for your leadership. If I can just take a moment during your appointment as acting county manager. I want to also thank the rest of the staff. It has truly been an unforgettable experience here with the county. The relationships I've managed to strengthen and develop over the time will certainly serve me throughout the rest of my career. And I do plan on staying in touch. And as I had spoken to you before, I will be available to you and to the staff for as long as I need to be in order to make sure that anything that I may have started or have been involved with or have knowledge of is carried through accordingly. I'd also like to thank all the council members and once again, congratulate the new members on board. I'm sorry that I won't have the opportunity to be working with you in the future, but to all those that were outgoing who may be on this meeting and those members that I have had the pleasure of serving under, I appreciate all your assistance and work in helping us do our work as the administration for Luzerne County.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you as well, Manager Kokomo. Did you have anything else for the division report?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you both. Agenda item number 2, we have discussion regarding the King's College pilot letter. There will be a presentation, I believe in February, but Manager Kokomo, do we have anybody on to just discuss that?
I'll defer to Attorney Lipsansky.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, my screen froze for a moment.
Attorney Lipsansky, you're muted.
I'm sorry, my screen froze for a moment. What topic were we on?
We're on the King's pilot.
Okay, yeah, regarding the King's pilot, King's will be presenting in February. The reason why we left it on the agenda was just to give advance notice that this issue was out there. As discussed by Attorney DeLuca, he had proposed maybe a subcommittee for council regarding pilots and LERTAs so that council can be involved in negotiating and learning about issues as early on as possible, as opposed to first learning about a LERTA pilot at a work session and then having to be faced with the decision to vote 2 weeks later. So they will be presenting in February, but again, the concept is out there that they're looking for the pilot, and it ties into the need for I'm sorry, it ties into the need for committees for pilots and LERTAs to get council involved as early on as possible.
Thank you. Okay, so council members, you have the letter in your packet. If you just want to review that and maybe just come prepared with questions. If we have questions between now and February 8th, who should we direct them to? Attorney Lipsansky?
Yeah, if there's any questions between now and the February meeting when King's is going to be presenting, by all means, send them to myself and Attorney DeLuca. And we'll, again, the idea is to get as many questions answered in advance of council having to consider the voters. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Urban?
Just a quick question. The pilot agreement that's in here now in this packet, is this just the older one or an example of one? I noticed that there's no signature from former manager Pedri on the particular pilot, so, or on this particular document. Even though it's notary's signatures on here already. So I'm assuming this is older. So would this be more of an example of one, or is there any current information on the new agreement in terms that we could review?
Yeah, I mean, that is an example of the older one, and Kings is going to be presenting newer terms. Again, that was for the purposes of putting it on council's radar. So council knows it's out there. And again, this ties into the need for a committee of council members to be getting involved on pilots and LERTAs as soon as possible, so that you're not asking questions and having to vote 2 weeks later. So we will be getting you more information, but like you said, Mr. Urban, this is an example.
Okay, and the other thing is I noticed the cover letter has the word confidential in there and may be discussed or reviewed, or basically may only be reviewed by county council members. For discussing it, I don't know how much we can really keep in confidence on this. I mean, obviously the terms of the agreement, we can hash that out. But most of our meetings are public, so I don't know how confidential we can keep this agreement.
And again, that's
Especially-
I'm sorry, due to the delays in the transmission. So that's another facet of having a council committee involved with the pilots and LERTAs.
Right.
Because we think council should be involved as early as possible with the negotiation. I mean, it's ultimately council's say on the terms. So from the Office of Law's perspective, we think council should be involved with the negotiations. We don't want to be negotiating on our own because it's ultimately not our say. So again, that's the concept behind the new committee.
Thank you. Any other comments on this?
It's my understanding this property is leased by them, right? We're not the owner of the property.
Shannon, I'm sorry, Attorney Lipsansky. Is the property leased? Mr. Lescavage is asking.
I do not have the answer to that.
I think the property is the upper parking lot across the street. Kings does lease that from the county currently. That's what they're talking about, I believe. Okay. But it is owned by Luzerne County, leased by Kingston College.
Thank you. And we can even send that in an email and just send it to the Office of Law, and we'll try to get all these questions out if we can before the presentation on the 8th. But for right now, does anybody else have any questions? Council members on the pilot letter? If not, moving on to number 3, so discussion regarding resolution approving the sales of certain parcels of property held in repository by Elite Revenue, acting as Luzerne County Tax Claim Bureau. I know we discussed moving forward, I think these properties might be filtered toward through the real estate committee. But do we have anybody on the line to just discuss item 3?
And again, if there are any particular questions, just ask. The chair did mention that this may be, these repository sales may be best vetted through the real estate committee. They can review them, and if there are issues that arise, look into those issues, but pass on the other sale properties that can go to council for a vote. And I believe that we will be presenting repository sales, I think quarterly. We're going to have a particular schedule where council will review these properties, and so that there is not a backlog. Last last year we had, I think, over 120 on one list, and that was way too many.
I'd like to say,
Thank you. Go ahead.
the one thing that I had requested before, whenever it comes to the repository, is to have maps or any other information that, Elite already has it scanned into the computer. So it's helpful for us to be able to review it if we have all that information in front of us, in case someone wants to take a look at the property and see what they, a council member, what they think about it. So that's what I would request, whether it goes through the real estate committee first or just directly to council. That is very helpful for everybody to make a decision. Of course, if there's ever a problem with the repository sale, we don't want to hold up the whole sale for it. So, again, we could always ask a question about one or two and then leave the rest to go to the sale.
Thank you.
That's correct, and you will get your maps.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Just a quick question.
Mr. Irvin?
Circling back to Mr. DeAndrea too, is he still?
Yes, we're in the process of getting the review appraisal done. I believe that was, we had an email just this past week about it. So it was supposed to go to budget and finance. I believe it had to be a purchase, something through purchasing. Imelda?
Mr.
I'll
Sweat,
take,
are you on?
I'll answer. So well, we did a purchase order through budget and finance. We were waiting for a written quote from the appraiser, and we got that from Mr. O'Neill. So it went to purchasing. I believe it was approved. I will double check that tomorrow. I will make sure we have everything well before the next meeting, but we're waiting on a written quote from the appraiser, and we did receive that. Mr. O'Neill had worked with the appraiser last week, so I'll make sure that that was processed through purchasing and budget and finance.
I have a question also.
Sure.
I know in here it says that none of the bidders owe any delinquent taxes in Luzerne County. Is there any way we can find any outside bidders if they have any delinquent taxes anywhere else?
I believe with Elite that, they're just focused on this county. It gets into trying to reach out to who, what resources do we have and what workers do we have to be able to reach out to the other counties? I just know that Elite said it's, something that they just deal with Luzerne County.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on agenda 3? If not, we're good. Moving on to 4, discussion regarding the Webster Bank loan renegotiation. Mr. Sweat, were you going to talk about that?
Mr. Shear from PFM's on. I just wanted to say one thing quick, and then I'll turn it over to him. This is not extending the term, so I know one of the things council and the public is always worried about is extending the term, and this would be the same term as a current loan. So Mr. Shear had sent the presentation that's in your packet. I'll let him speak about it. You can send me any emails, and between myself and Mr. Shear, we'll answer what we can tonight or get back to any emails. Mr. Shear?
All right, good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the intro. So yeah, I had mentioned this, I believe, back maybe 2 months or so ago when we had their initial discussion possibly on the tax and revenue anticipation note back in November. But one of the jobs that we do for the county is look at possibly reducing interest rates on any of the county's outstanding indebtedness. And so at that time, I had brought up the possibility of looking at doing not necessarily a refinancing. It's kind of a slight terminology difference, but more of a rate modification. So it's less paperwork, it's less fees, and it can be done a little bit quicker to go back to the same lending institution, in this case Webster Bank, that is the lender for the 2019 loan, and look to reduce the rate. And so the handout that I believe all you have seen just kind of highlights some of the main facts and figures related to that. So again, just to get everyone reacclimated, on page 3 of that handout are just some brief bullet points about the Webster Bank loan, that there's about 33 million and change outstanding. The current interest rate is low, it's a 2.174, but we are actually able to go a little bit lower, and that does produce some savings. And so when we went back to Webster, they had come back with a new indicative rate of a 1.98%. And what that translates into is savings of roughly $331,000. It's the actual savings are about $408,000. And then when we factor in the issuance cost of roughly $75,000 to do this, it takes the net savings down to about like I said, $331,000. That's spread over the life of the loan. And as Mr. Sweats had mentioned, this rate renegotiation is keeping the same exact amortization. So none of the principal payments are changing. It's still going to continue to go out to 2030. And again, because it's not a refinancing and just a modification of the rate, the principal payback stays the same. It's just going from the 2.17 rate down to 1.98 rate with basically level savings over the term through 2030. And so if you did want to move forward, we would be in a position on the timeline back on page 3 that, obviously this evening is just a workshop. We could be back for your January 25th with the approval of the ordinance that I believe everyone has a draft of to effectuate that rate reset, and then it would close about a month later. We're assuming February 25th. So again, that's sort of a high level. We have looked at typically for all of our handouts that we do for the county, we show the same schedule that's on page 4 of that handout where it has all of the outstanding debt of the county. And, all the other debt right now is not refinanceable. The call dates are out a couple of years in 2025 or 2027. This is really the only opportunity to reduce the interest rate on any of the county's existing debt. We are in a good time to at least be considering it. Whether or not you move forward is surely your choice. But right now we are not at the all-time low in the market when we go back many years, but we're about, I'll say maybe half a percent or 50 basis points off the all-time low when it comes to kind of midterm and long-term interest rates. So it is a good time to be at least considering this opportunity. So with that, I will stop and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Urban?
Just on the 1 page 55 of the certificate of the county council, it shows a hard date of January 11th, which is today. So we would probably want to remove that out of this for blanket until we actually vote on it. Voting page shows on 55 to 76.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree, Mr. Urban. I'm not the attorney, but I think it should be the 25th when you vote on it.
Yeah, okay, we can get that edited to be the 25th.
Is this one that we have to pass by 2 readings, or is this automatically introduced if this is brought forward by administration? This is an ordinance.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Urban?
Is this something that can pass on 1 reading, or does it have to go to 2?
Attorney Craig Lipsansky, do you have an answer on that? I'm gonna guess it probably needs to be introduced first, but we could go take a look at it and get back to, make sure we do it right moving forward. So Mr. Shearer, does it hurt anything if this takes an extra meeting to get done? Like, is the timeline flexible if we push it back another meeting, if it does need a first reading to be introduced?
When would the next meeting be after January 25th?
February 8th.
We can check with the bank. I mean, there could be some potential change in the rate depending on market conditions over that time period. We can surely go back and check with the bank on it. I will also, I'm happy to circle back with bond counsel in the morning just to see what the protocol would be or has been in the past with 1 reading versus 2 readings.
Okay, thank you. If we could just get that sorted out before the next meeting, Mr. Sweats and Ms. Procomo, if you want to work together, you can do that. But
Sure.
There is a chance it could be automatically introduced.
Yep, we'll get on it first thing in the morning.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr.
Just,
Moore?
yeah, one thing, I believe this is something we should definitely eventually adopt. It is a savings, a net savings, 331,000. However, I would like to see us add something to it or separately aside. The cost to the county is 77.5, which it's suggested to take from the reserve fund, and that's fine. Could we add something though, maybe to vote on to replace that money back in the reserve fund within the first 2 years of the savings? Because it is going to save about $40,000 a year. I like to see the reserve fund replenish every time it's robbed. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's just something for consideration.
Mr. Swets or Mr. Shearer, do you have a comment on that?
I'll take it, Scott.
Sure.
No, I don't have an issue with that, or we could split the difference and take, the 40,000 of this year out of the current interest savings and the difference out of the reserve. I totally understand Councilman's point. Either way is fine with us. At the time we put together the agenda submittal, I didn't have the final numbers yet on the savings, so that's why it was just all from the reserve.
Okay, thank you. Does any other council members have any questions for Mr. Shearer or Mr. Swets?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Sure.
This is an example of Luzerne County doing a good job with their financial status throughout the past 10 years. When did you ever hear of a bank lowering their interest rates? Mr. Newman referred to some things a little earlier. But here you're seeing the financial institutions out there saying, Luzerne County is doing a good job. We're willing to lower that interest rate and save $300 and some thousand. I think that's a credit to the people who served on council over the past 10 years. And of course, I think hopefully this new council will follow that kind of direction also.
I agree, thank you. Okay, if nothing else on agenda item number 4, we have a discussion regarding the Bilbo real estate purchase. I'm going to defer to Councilwoman McDermott on that.
Okay, so for everyone new, Mr. Bilbo presented his purchase packet. I believe it was back in August, but we had it at the real estate committee meeting September 16th. And everything is in here. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it, but there are 2 parcels in Hanover Township, not contiguous. They're in the Linwood section. They are in a flood zone protected by the levee bill. Next to commercial buildings and right next to the Wyoming Valley Sewer Authority. But Mr. Bilbo is interested in purchasing the lots at $500 each, so a total of $1,000. And the last thing that council did was to allow Mr. Bilbo to advertise it in a paper, which he did, and produce the proof of the advertisement. So the next thing that we can do is then at a voting session, possibly January 25th, approve the sale of the property to Mr. Bilbo. But if anybody has any questions, I can answer them now, or if you want to email me, but we do have a map in there. All the information that I presented to council.
Any questions from Ms. McDermott? Okay, if not, moving on, we have discussion regarding the addition of 2 new council committees. 6A would be a review committee. That doesn't necessarily have to be the name of it, but in speaking with the Office of Law, the premise of this would be for a council member or 2 to work with administration in the Office of Law and negotiations on anything like leases, pilots, LERTAs, contracts that need to be approved by council. So it would get a council member or 2 involved in the process earlier. So if anybody has any comments about that, that's something we're looking to add to the council committees. The name is up for grabs. We don't know if we're going to call it the review committee, but that would be the premise of it.
And Ms. Radel, again, that circles back to what I said before. Typically, when a pilot or a LERTA is before council, you see that for the first time at a work session where an entity is making a presentation and then you're faced with voting on it 2 weeks later. So the purpose would be to get council involved as soon as possible and be involved in the negotiation process so that you're involved from the first step possible, as opposed to being faced with it and voting on it 2 weeks later. So that's the concept for the creation of the new committee.
Thank you. And then the other committee, sorry, was someone going to say something? No, okay.
No, I'm
So
sorry,
the
that
other-
was me coughing.
Oh, okay. The other committee is the infrastructure committee, and that Manager Kokomo, did you want to talk about that?
And I'll try to be brief. And of course, if you have any specific questions, you can always ask me. The infrastructure committee, actually, the concept behind that is we are on the cusp of an explosion of development with Nacero and North Point and other developers. With the infrastructure comes development, and we need to have an infrastructure plan. We can see the successes in our finances, and one of the reasons why we have that success is that we have a long-term and a long-range plan. We need to have that for our infrastructure and for looking forward to our development. So what I would like to do is have a committee so that the administration can work with council, keep council up to date, and get insight from council as it relates to infrastructure. And I define infrastructure more than roads and bridges and transportation. Other transportation means I also would like to include our IT department, because that has an infrastructure, and I want to make sure that council has all the information about contracts and where we're going with IT. It's a critical department, and I would like to have the experience and the know-how and the knowledge that council members have to share with the administration.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on infrastructure? Mr.
I
Irvin?
can also see this one, sort of imagine that, you know, with development also goes with education. So maybe to even include someone from LCC, because community college should be an engine to produce students or individuals that are educated around this county. In other words, can you get someone involved with LCC to maybe develop or expand on certain curriculums where we need employment in areas that we're short in the industry, like, you know, I brought out years ago saying, hey, we're bringing all this warehouse in. We have a great driving school at LCC. We just need to hire more instructors so we can fill the need of all the different businesses around here. Especially if you look around here, it's a ton of warehouses. We are the heart and soul, sort of like we're a transportation mecca when it comes to warehousing, because you can get almost anywhere within a day from Luzerne County, within probably 4 or 5 hours, and still turn around and come back home. And so I see a huge shortage right now. There's a supply chain issue all across the country. You're seeing inflation go up higher than necessary because all the businesses in this county are competing for the same labor pool. And so, you know, you're artificially inflating salaries at times, and it's putting a strain on companies when they have to go out and, you know, give a $20,000 sign-on bonus for a driver. So CDLs are something that I had mentioned years ago that we should probably, you know, try to get some more instructors at LCC. And also, like I said, even in the medical field, if there's any shortages in nursing and things like that, they have a great school and they provide a great education to a lot of people. I think we need to think outside the box with this one. Get other people involved from other maybe committees across the county organization. Do some outreach with various committees that we have within the county. Bring those individuals on board too, and bring them in, and, you know, maybe even, like I said, have somebody on LCC join us with this one, because we don't want to see pricing go up, and we know that we'll just get passed on to the consumer if we don't have people that work in certain fields. And that's one area. I mean, we have hundreds or probably thousands of warehouse doors here, and every one of those doors could potentially have a driver. And I know for a fact that our company looks to certain driving schools just to pull people immediately right after they graduate from driving school. And once they attain their CDL, let's work with business and try to build up the infrastructure. Because if we're going to bring in more warehouses, I don't know how we're going to actually be successful if we don't have enough people to work in those industries or in those fields. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach. We're going to have to think outside the box on this one.
Thank you. All good points. And adding a member from LCC onto that committee, I think could be a good idea. So we'll work on that. Does anybody have any questions on agenda item number 6? If not, before we get to public comment, just a few things. I appointed the council committees. I'll read them quickly. Act 13, Mr. Thornton is the chair, Mr. Liscavige is the vice chair, and Ms. McDermott is on that. Authorities, boards, and commissions. John Lombardo, vice chair, Chris Terry, vice chair, Mr. Schnee, Mr. McGinley. On the budget, finance, and audit, Mr. McGinley is the chair, Chris Terry is the vice chair, myself and Mr. Thornton. Strategic initiatives, Mr. Wolovich is the chair, Mr. Lombardo, vice chair, Mr. Liscavige, and Mr. Urban will also serve on there. Real estate committee, Ms. McDermott's the chair, Mr. Liscavige is the vice chair, Mr. McGinley on the real estate committee as well. Legislative, Mr. Schnee is the chair, vice chair is Mr. Wolovich and Mr. Perry. Code review, Mr. Urban is the chair, Ms. Radel is the vice chair, and Ms. McDermott is also on there. In addition to that, council members, you all had a draft meeting dates. As long as no one has any issues with this, we'll go ahead and advertise our meeting dates. And now we are open to the public.
Thank you again. As I was reading the agenda before the meeting, I wasn't sure what was going to happen with the infrastructure committee. Now, the county manager did explain, and I would also remind her that infrastructure is not always on the surface, it's below the surface. You have water lines, electrical lines, utility lines, gas, electric, and sewer. So this is a big item because this land that we have, for the most part, is undeveloped and there is no underground infrastructure. So that's going to become a big part of where Luzerne County is going. I would also remind her, and I'll remind you, a big thing that's coming down the road. Charging stations for electric cars or natural gas powered cars. And that's going to be part of the infrastructure. And Luzerne County is going to be a big part of it because to get your power to the charging stations has to be some sort of infrastructure. Pipelines, gas lines, electric. So this is a great idea, this infrastructure committee. And I think you all ought to pursue that because this is part of the future. Part of the future. Not only part of the future, it's now. It's now. I mean, I live in the shadow of a huge development that's going in along Middle Road. And I watch the corrugated pipe coming in. I hear them working around the clock. The roads are in, but now they're working on getting sewers in, gas lines in, electrical lines, okay? So it's here now, folks. And I would say that one of the things you need to do, I'll make this suggestion to you, enact this committee. Enact it, get good people on it, get good leadership, and I think it'll pay dividends for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Yes.
Mr.
On the
Fitzgerald?
infrastructure, basically the same thing is that we have a big monster coming here. We're gonna have a lot of different plans coming and like Greg Griffin said from the Blight Committee and the Citizens United. We are gonna have to build houses. It keeps on saying affordable for home, working class people, because if you come into this area, I'm an area director of one company. I also own a mortgage company. I was in the mortgage business 20 years. There is, and Leanne is also in the real estate business. We know that there is very few houses out there. People are outbidding each other 2-3 times, $20,000 worth more. They can sell a house more than it's worth. So we really do have to tackle this population growth within Luzerne County. We got to address it on many different tiers. We need housing, good housing that will appreciate the value. We have to try to get people coming into this area that are working class people. You know, we don't want the crime, you know, coming in. So we definitely want people that have, you know, value jobs like, you know, Greg always speaks about. And we have to do this very intelligently. So I wish that you know, an infrastructure to me doesn't mean IT. That's not infrastructure to me. I mean, it's wells, like this man said, I agree with that 100%. That needs to be done in charge of valid points. So let's, you know, I think a committee for that, an intelligent committee, and a fiscal conservative committee. I'm gonna say that every time I come up here. You know, someone that's, you're gonna do it wise and not just do it, just do it. I think, you know, that's why I asked if Haas could be back, was I think y'all got together before the new committee said and didn't spend that $1 million on the roads. I thought that was the smartest thing in the world, to be patient. Sometimes it's better to be patient. And then on the IT front, I was just wondering, that was one of the things that I did talk about on a previous meeting. I was just wondering if anything has been done since then as far as doing an audit, because we did hire 3 new people or different jobs without really doing an audit first. I was just wondering, has an audit been done since then? Do we know how many computers? Do we know how many staff? Are we moving forward intelligently or haphazardly? So I'm just, does anybody know that question? Do we do an audit on IT? Mr. Urban? I know that you're an IT guy. I haven't heard anything yet.
I haven't heard anything regarding the audit, but we can follow up and get back to you.
That's,
about
yeah, I think that might be intelligent. Great points.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public?
Madam Chair, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to infrastructure, I'm going to give the same suggestion I gave Hazleton City Council and Hazleton City Mayor back in 2013 when the downtown development first started. And that is, if you are going to have development, not just partial development, but total development, you cannot neglect the neighborhood revitalization of how, like what was just mentioned with regards to housing, especially existing housing. I cannot emphasize that enough because, and I'm going to say the same thing I said to Hazleton City back in 2013 to you, to members of the county council and county administration. If you focus on just the commercial development and industrial development without neighborhood revitalization as a component, you're going to have diamonds in the middle of junkyards. Okay. And that is basically what you're looking at if you only deal with the commercial and industrial component without addressing the neighborhoods and community component along with it. I would strongly urge also to reach out to not only the community college, as Councilman Urban suggests, and members of the public also suggested other entities like public utilities and such. I would also advocate for the authorities that handle infrastructure, such as the Industrial Development Authority and the County Redevelopment Authority. I think you need to have all the hands on deck that you can with this. I know that you, Madam Chair, you and the members of council have the infrastructure committee for the county, but this needs to be an intergovernmental outreach as well as within the county, framework of the government. So that being said, also, I would like to ask the question as for the real estate, for the repository properties. I know I mentioned it in the past, but there was legislation passed into law over the 4th of July weekend that all counties had to register the bidders for judicial and upset sales with respect to all bidders and all entities such as nonprofits, LLCs. I'm wondering if the acting county manager and Councilwoman McDermott could answer if they got responses back from the tax claim office, if that has been implemented with respect to those, because that way the Councilwoman McDermott can be able to get her information as for the bidders for those repositories if they don't have outstanding delinquent taxes and delinquent utility bills, because that information is on the would be required on the form. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rebo, anything to add?
No, I don't know if they implemented it. I know that was supposed to be, but I could double check with them and let you know.
Mr. Rebo, we could look into it and get back to you, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have a good evening.
Sure. Thank you. You as well. Any other members of the public? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Session. That's right.